Hello friends, welcome again. In this lecture, we are going to study double fertilization and triple fusion. What is double fertilization? The process of fertilization which takes twice is known as double fertilization. And let's see how this double fertilization and triple fusion occur in an angiosperm. Now, let me remind you one thing. This double fertilization is the characteristics of angiosperm. That means it only happens in angiosperm. Double fertilization is the characteristic of only angiosperm. It does not shown by any lower plants like gymnosperm, algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes. It is the characteristics of it is the characteristic of angiosperm. Let's see what happens in double fertilization. Now you all know that fertilization meaning is it is also known as syngamy. This syngamy or fertilization is nothing but the fusion of male gamete with female gamete. Fertilization is the process of fusion of male gamete and female gamete. And this male gamete and female gamete are haploid in nature. That means it contains single set of chromosome. When this male and female gamete fuses, it will form two spore. That is zygote. Oospore, or you can say zygote. And this zygote will result into the embryo, and in further development this embryo will get converted into new plant. So fertilization is required for the development of new plant, and it is the characteristic of all living things. Now we are looking double fertilization under the heading fertilization, and then fertilization is also known as syngamy. So this fertilization is also known as syngamy. Let's see how double fertilization occurs in angiosperm. This fertilization process starts after the entry of pollen tube into the ovule, and we have seen how this pollen tube enter into the ovule. Now, as soon as this pollen tube enter into the ovule containing two male gametes, this will enter into the, let's draw the structure of ovule. This is the embryo sac. This is chalazar egg. These are antipodals. These are these three nuclei which are present at the micropylar end are known as egg apparatus, out of which the central cell is known as egg cell, and these two lateral cells of egg cell is known as synergids, and the central cell contains two nuclei, or it will form after fusion a secondary nucleus. This is secondary nucleus. This is diploidic condition. Remember that this secondary nucleus having ploidy condition is diploid, and this egg cell contains female gamete is haploid. Now, as soon as pollen tube enter into the ovule, if that pollen tube enter through the micropyle, that pollen tube first go up to the synergids. Now remember that this polar tube contains two male gametes and a tube nucleus. So these are two male gametes, and this is tube nucleus. This tube nucleus will degenerate as soon as this polar tube enter into the embryo sac. Now, this polar tube having these two male gametes and tube nucleus and some amount of cytoplasm. This polar tube contains tube nucleus at forward direction and two male gametes and some cytoplasm. This will form polar tube contained. This will form polar tube contained. Or someone asks you what is the content of polar tube. Then you can say two male gametes with one tube nucleus and some amount of cytoplasm is the polar tube contained. Now, as soon as this polar tube enter the ovule through the micropyle, this polar tube directly goes one of the synergid. That means it will rupture the wall of synergid. As soon as this polar tube rupture the wall of synergid, one of the synergid that we can say, the cytoplasm of this synergid will release out. After the penetration of this polar tube to the synergid, it will then pierce or it will penetrate the egg wall, which is soft and which can be easily breakable. So this after synergid penetration, this polar tube penetrate the egg cell wall and that polar tube will forcefully discharge its content, that is one tube nucleus, two male gametes and cytoplasm amount. So after piercing this wall of egg cell, this will forcefully release its content into the embryo sac and two male gametes, one tube nucleus and cytoplasm will release out or it will goes into the embryo sac, it will disperse into the embryo sac. Now, the cytoplasm of synergid will confine to the micropylar end. That means the cytoplasm of synergid will be at this micropylar end, but the cytoplasm of polar tube will goes up to the chalazal end. And this tube nucleus will degenerate. After some development or after some time, this cytoplasm of synergid get degenerate or both the synergid get degenerate due to some compound present in the polar tube. Now, these synergids degenerate after some development and these two male gametes remain at the embryo sac. Now, this egg cell having female gamete, that is haploid female gamete, this female gamete is fuses with the one of the male gamete. This polar tube is having two male gametes, so among that two male gametes, one of the male gamete fuses with the female gamete and it will form one of the male gamete, that is haploid male gamete, fuses with the haploid female gamete and it will form diploid oospore. This oospore develops into zygote and after further development, this will get converted into embryo, and this embryo will give rise to new plant. So this is the first reaction of fertilization, where one of the male gamete from two male gamete fuses with the female gamete and forms zygote. That zygote will develop into embryo, and that embryo will develop into new plant. Now, this second male gamete will goes inside to the embryo sac, and it will fuses with the secondary nucleus. Now, this second male gamete, that is haploid, will fuses with secondary nucleus, which is diploid, and it will form triploid condition. That triploid condition is nothing but the endosperm. It will form endosperm. See, here three haploid nuclei are fused. That's why this process or this reaction is known as triple fusion. What happens in case of second reaction? Three haploid nuclei fuse to form triploid nucleus. This is triploid nucleus. This triploid nucleus is nothing but the endosperm mother cell, or you can say it is the nucleus of endosperm mother cell, and this endosperm mother cell will give rise to endosperm, which is the product of double fertilization. So there are two products of double fertilization, that is, one is embryo that is developed from the one of the male gamete, and female gamete will form diploid zygote that will develop into embryo, and it will form new plant. So the product of double fertilization is the diploid zygote and triploid endosperm. This triploid endosperm, you know how this will express? See, I repeat the process. If one of the male gamete fuses with the one of the female gamete, that we call the first reaction or first fertilization, and it will form diploid zygote. This is the first product of double fertilization. Now, in the second reaction of fertilization, second male gamete of colon tube will fuses with this secondary nucleus, which is diploid. So this n plus 2n will form 3n condition. This 3n is the triploid nucleus, and this triploid nucleus is the nucleus of endosperm, which will act as endosperm mother cell and will give rise to endosperm. This endosperm is nothing but a nutritive tissue. This is nutritive tissue. So this is the advantage of double fertilization, that it will form endosperm, because this endosperm is nutritive in function, which provide nutrition to this developing embryo. See, in double fertilization and triple fusion process, this zygote or embryo and this endosperm will grow or develop simultaneously, and this endosperm will provide nourishment and some nutrients to this developing embryo. So endosperm is necessary for the development of embryo. Now, the first reaction of fertilization involves fusion of one male gamete with female gamete, which are haploid in nature. It will form 2n, that is zygote, and this zygote will develop into embryo, and embryo will develop into new plant. So this is the first reaction of fertilization. In the second reaction of fertilization, This second male gamete fuses with secondary nucleus and it will form triploid nucleus, and this triploid nucleus is the nucleus of endosperm, and that endosperm nucleus will act as endosperm mother cell and it will form an endosperm. Then this endosperm is triploid in condition. Hence here in case of second reaction of fertilization, three haploid nuclei are fused to form triploid nucleus. That's why this second reaction is known as triple fusion and this process is known as double fertilization. So this all process involves two reactions. In the first reaction, one of the male gamete from two male gametes fuses with the female gamete and form zygote. And in the second reaction, second male gamete fuses with the secondary nucleus and form triploid nucleus, which form later endosperm. So this fertilization involves two fertilization reaction. That's why it is known as the double fertilization and triple fusion. And this is the characteristic of angiosperm. So there is significance of double fertilization. I hope you have understood very well up till this. Now in the next lecture we will see what are the significance of double fertilization. Thank you for learning.